More than 3 years ago, we introduced a prophetic manga titled The Future I Saw. The book was published in 1997, but after its release, it failed to attract readers. It wasn't until after the Great 3/11 earthquake in Japan that people realized the manga's cover had long displayed the message a major catastrophe will occur in March 2011. Not only on the cover, when flipping through the pages, readers could even see scenes resembling a tsunami. These images uncannily matched the actual events of 3/11. In an instant, the manga attracted massive attention. Shortly after, a person claiming to be Tatsuki created a website and continuously posted prophecies. By 2021, the real Tatsuki reached out to the publisher, presenting proof such as publication tax records to confirm that the online Tatsuki was a fake. Tatsuki, now over 70 years old, stepped forward not only to stop the impersonator from spreading misinformation, but more importantly, because she had an urgent prophecy to share, one concerning the year 2025. It turns out that the tsunami depicted in the original 1997 manga was not referencing the 3/11 earthquake, but rather, a disaster still yet to come, in 2025. We'll dive into details about this soon. But why did Tatsuki write, March 2011 will have a great disaster, on the cover? Tatsuki explained that, at the time, she had completed all the content for the manga and was working on the cover illustration. The girl on the cover is actually a self-portrait, surrounded by floating white pages. Each blank page represents the dreams she had seen. However, one page remained completely empty. She didn't know what to draw on it. Then, that night, she had a dream. In the dream, she entered a movie theater. A sentence appeared on the blank white screen: in March 2011, a great disaster will occur. Although Tatsuki didn't know what it meant, something inside told her this message was important. So she decided to put the phrase directly on the manga's cover. That's why there are only words on that page, because she didn't actually see the disaster itself in the dream. So, here's the big question: if the tsunami in the manga wasn't about 3/11, then what was it? In her 2021 completed edition, Tatsuki shared a new prophecy. After the manga's first release, she had 2 more prophetic dreams. According to what she saw, a major event will occur in July 2025, impacting Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. Today's video doesn't just explore the manga more deeply but also reveals many details never discussed before. Why do so many Japanese netizens believe Taiwan is the center of the upcoming disaster? Why does Tatsuki urge everyone in the manga to run? Should we be worried? Today, let's talk about the most important prophecy of 2025. On December 2, 1954, Tatsuki was born in Kanagawa, Japan. She's now 71 years old. She has published several manga, but the one most people know is The Future I Saw, first released in 1999. Interestingly, Tatsuki is not her real name, it's a pen name. According to her, she never revealed her real name because she knew she wouldn't be a manga artist forever. To protect her private life, she chose anonymity. It wasn't until 2021 that she rarely shared a photo of herself at 29 years old in the newly completed edition of the manga. In her work, Tatsuki clearly states, she does not have any psychic abilities or supernatural powers. But for some reason, she keeps dreaming about the future, dreams that somehow always involve her. This began when she was 9 years old. That year, due to moving houses, she had to transfer schools and was bullied by classmates. It made her hate going to school. One day, she began wondering, why am I me? Why was I born on Earth? Why am I in this body? Then she thought, why must I be stuck in this body at all? Following this thought, she attempted to push her consciousness out of her body, and flew straight up into outer space. She felt incredibly small as she observed her own body closely. Suddenly, she sensed that someone else was watching her. Curious, she looked up, and saw an old man. The man was wearing a long robe, and his appearance was warm and kind. At that very moment, Tatsuki felt a deep sense of coming home, and tears began flowing down her face without her realizing it. She even believed that this old man might be the creator himself. If you look closely at the cover of her manga, you can see a pair of arms reaching down from above. The figure they belong to appears to be wearing a white robe. Could it be that Tatsuki was implying her prophetic dreams were messages from the creator? According to Tatsuki, after this encounter, she began frequently dreaming of massive tsunamis. However, at the time, she hadn't yet developed the habit of recording her dreams, so those early tsunami visions were not included in her manga. It wasn't until 1985 that she began writing her dreams down in a journal gifted by her mother. The reason she recorded them wasn't because she believed they were prophecies. In fact, she never thought her dreams would come true. She simply loved analyzing them. That changed after one particular event. On August 27, 1989, Tatsuki had a strange dream. In the dream, she entered a sea-filled cave, and a mysterious woman was standing beside her. The woman seemed to be speaking, but Tatsuki couldn't hear her because the crashing waves drowned out the sound. What's important is that this wasn't the first time she had this dream, it had repeated many times. So she began analyzing it. In dream symbolism books, a cave is said to represent a connection to the spiritual realm or sometimes the unconscious mind. The woman's face, on the other hand, might represent a different aspect of Tatsuki's personality. However, this interpretation changed a year later. One day, Tatsuki, now a professional manga artist, was stuck in a creative block and decided to go out for a walk to clear her mind. Hoping for inspiration, she purposely chose a place she'd never visited before. To her surprise, she stumbled upon a cave exactly like the one from her dreams. Immediately, she pulled out her camera and took photos, thinking she could later compare them with the drawings in her dream journal. But what she didn't expect was that on the very day the photos were developed, she turned on the news and saw a report: a fisherman had discovered the body of a woman in that very cave. The appearance and clothing of the woman's body were identical to those of the woman in her dream. This meant that the event Tatsuki dreamed about had really happened. She was deeply shaken, but even more shocked when she realized this wasn't the first time she had dreamed about the future. In November 1976, Tatsuki had a dream where she and her friend, Y, were listening to a news broadcast announcing the death of Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of the band Queen. In the dream, her friend Y was so overwhelmed with grief that he burst into tears. Tatsuki then woke up suddenly from the dream. At the time, she remembered something someone once told her: if you dream about something bad, say it out loud quickly, and it won't come true. So, she told this dream to many of her friends. And indeed, afterward, Freddie Mercury continued to live well. However, 10 years later, on November 24, 1991, the news suddenly reported that Freddie had passed away. When she heard the news, Tatsuki had a strange sense of déjà vu, like she had seen it before somewhere. A few days later, she revisited her dream journal, and to her astonishment, she discovered that she had dreamed of Freddie's death exactly 10 years earlier, on November 24, 1981. Even more, she had seen it on television in the dream, just like how it happened in real life. But Freddie hadn't appeared in her dreams only once. On November 28, 1986, she dreamed of Queen performing on stage, but what puzzled her was that Freddie was missing from the performance. Even in the bronze statues displayed at the venue, there was no statue of Freddie. Then, as Tatsuki was reflecting on these dreams, she noticed something uncanny. That dream had happened on November 28 the previous year. And the very day she remembered it, was also November 28. It was then that Tatsuki finally realized something important. She wasn't just dreaming about random future events, she only dreamed about people, events, or things connected to her own life, or things she might interact with during her lifetime. For example, she dreamed of the dead woman in the cave, and later went to the real site. She saw the news of Freddie's death on TV, something she would later experience herself. In other words, Tatsuki could not dream about distant futures, like events over 100 years from now. She could only see visions of the future within the span of her own life. These dreams used to make her feel deeply uneasy, especially when they involved death. For instance, on January 2, 1995, Tatsuki had a dream where two massive cracks appeared on the Earth's surface. At the time, she thought this was a prophetic sign of her own death, because in the dream, along with the cracks, she also saw an angel. She told the angel, "Please take me with you." But the angel replied, "Not yet. I will come to get you next year." That same year, she had another dream of her own funeral, and even saw the exact date of the funeral, July 15th. Because of this, for years Tatsuki believed she would die on July 15, 2000. But she didn't know at the time that the dream wasn't predicting her death. Exactly 15 days after she dreamt of the cracked earth, on May 17, 1995, the Great Hanshin earthquake occurred. The quake had a magnitude of 7.3 on the Richter scale, with the epicenter 17.6 kilometers deep, causing massive destruction. More than 6,000 people lost their lives, and around 250,000 homes collapsed. When Tatsuki saw the scenes on the news, she was shocked, because they looked exactly like the scenes in her dream from 15 days earlier. That's when she finally realized, the dream wasn't foretelling her own death, but rather a major upcoming disaster. Aside from the 1995 Hanshin earthquake, there was another dream back in 1992. That one, Tatsuki saw a drawing of herself, and next to it was a photo of a woman named Diana, and then, in the next 5 years, Princess Diana sadly passed away. Because of this, some internet users believe that the time between Tatsuki's prophetic dreams and their fulfillment often follows a pattern, possibly based on a multiple of 5 years after she has the dream. Examples: in 1976, she dreamt of Freddie Mercury's death 15 years later. It happened. On January 2, 1995, she dreamt of the earth cracking 15 days later. The Hanshin earthquake struck. In 1992, she saw Princess Diana's image 5 years later. Diana passed away. However, this isn't always the case. Sometimes Tatsuki sees the exact date when the event will occur. For instance, before publishing her manga, she dreamed of the March 2011 disaster. And in the latest case, she dreamed of a great catastrophe in July 2025, which she now believes may be the day she dies. At the end of the 20th century, the world was fixated on the prophecies of the famous seer Nostradamus, who wrote that in July 1999, a great king of terror would descend from the sky. Many believed this predicted a catastrophic, possibly apocalyptic event. As a result, media outlets around the world began discussing the possibility of doomsday, including those in Japan. One Japanese program even featured the famous Indian spiritual leader Sai Baba. When Tatsuki saw this program, she was completely stunned, because she had seen this mysterious figure many times in her dreams, but never knew who he was. So, she immediately began researching him. And once she did, she discovered something astonishing. The palm lines on Sai Baba's right hand were nearly identical to the palm lines on her own left hand. This strange coincidence was too significant for her to ignore. As a result, Tatsuki made up her mind. She had to travel to India to meet Sai Baba in person. But what she didn't expect was that, by the end of that journey, she would suddenly awaken memories of a past life. At the moment when Tatsuki traveled thousands of miles to India to meet Sai Baba, her mind was suddenly flooded with images that felt both unfamiliar and familiar. It turned out that in a past life, she and Sai Baba had been father and daughter, living in England during the 1800s. At the exact moment Tatsuki regained this past life memory, Sai Baba communicated with her telepathically, saying, "I know." During this journey, Tatsuki also had an extremely terrifying dream. In the dream, she was high above the Pacific Ocean, viewing the Earth from a satellite-like perspective. Suddenly, she noticed that the sea between Japan and the Philippines was bubbling, as if something beneath the Earth was tearing it apart. Even more unsettling, she had this terrifying dream 2 more times. In the second dream, the same event occurred again, but this time she saw more details. There were 2 shapes that looked like dragons flying from east to west. After that, a massive explosion echoed up from the ocean floor, followed by a tsunami even more powerful than the 3/11 tsunami. The waves surged toward Japan, submerging 1/3 to 1/4 of the country. And not just Japan, Tatsuki said that regions around the Pacific Ocean were also attacked by tsunamis. But that wasn't the most shocking part. After the sea receded, Tatsuki saw a new landmass rising between Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the Philippines, forming a continuous strip of land connecting those regions. The most critical detail, Tatsuki also saw the time of the dream, July 2025, although no exact day was shown. The scene was so overwhelming that Tatsuki woke up in shock. When she looked at the clock, it read 4:18 a.m. on July 5, 2021. So Tatsuki concluded that the prophetic dream foretold something that would happen on July 5, 2025. Some netizens even speculated further, perhaps the disaster would strike at 4:18 a.m., the exact time she woke up. Currently, many people believe the disaster in Tatsuki's dream may be caused by natural forces, like an underwater volcanic eruption triggering massive tectonic shifts, eventually leading to a catastrophic event. However, for those who've read her book closely, they'll notice that Tatsuki also suggested the disaster might be caused by a bomb, not just a volcano. In fact, she leans more toward the idea that the 2025 event will be a man-made catastrophe. This is also why Tatsuki refers to 3/11 as a great disaster, but calls the 2025 event a great accident. To her, a disaster is caused by nature, while an accident may be the result of human actions. But is that really possible? What kind of human factor could cause a catastrophe of this scale? Well, there's a relevant historical event that in 1965, aboard the USS Ticonderoga, an American Navy aircraft carrier, there was an incident involving a Skyhawk fighter jet. During a training operation, the jet accidentally fell into the ocean while being moved toward elevator number 2 from the hangar deck. The jet, and its pilot, were never recovered. More importantly, the aircraft was carrying a B-43 hydrogen bomb. To this day, neither the plane nor the bomb has been found. Because of this, many netizens now speculate, could this missing hydrogen bomb be the cause of the great accident Tatsuki foresaw? According to records, the B-43 bomb has a yield equivalent to 70,000 to 1 million tons of TNT, that's up to 66 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. However, the location in the ocean where the bomb supposedly fell is somewhat distant from the area where Tatsuki saw the seafloor cracking in her dream. So, it's impossible to confirm whether that hydrogen bomb was truly responsible for the disaster. However, these events have still caused significant concern among Japanese netizens. According to Tatsuki, after her trip to India, she believed that the tsunami she dreamed of would indeed occur in this upcoming disaster. So what else happened in Tatsuki's dream on July 5, 2025? Back in 1981, Tatsuki had a very strange dream. She dreamt that in a certain future year, Japan's climate was abnormal, and for nearly the entire year, it was extremely cold. Then starting from a certain month, small earthquakes began to occur constantly throughout the country. Then one day, the seawater suddenly receded. Before people had time to react, a loud roaring sound followed by a tsunami crashed into the streets. Everyone was in panic, screaming and running in all directions. The whole city fell into complete chaos. And in the middle of this fear and despair, Tatsuki jolted awake from her dream. However, she did not actually wake up. It was a dream within a dream. When she woke up from the inner dream, the clock read around 5 a.m. At that point, she couldn't tell whether she was still dreaming or had truly awakened. Her dream journal contains more detailed records of this vision. In it, she wrote that after the tsunami appeared, she was so terrified that she cried out, "Hades. This is the god who rules the underworld in European mythology." Then, Tatsuki lost consciousness. When she came to, she was lying in a room that had been flooded with seawater, meaning the disaster had already occurred. She looked at the time and noticed that her watch had stopped, and just so happened to be stuck at 5 a.m. Could the disaster have broken her watch? That time, 5 a.m., was very close to when she woke up from her later dream 40 years after, where she viewed the Pacific Ocean from above. Unable to distinguish between dream and reality, Tatsuki was deeply confused. She then left the house, went outside, and saw that there were no people or cars anywhere. She wandered slowly and eventually came across a very tall overpass, and instinctively walked toward it. Along the way, she noticed that the shops along the road had changed, as if something catastrophic had just occurred. She entered a clothing store and found it full of yellowed second-hand clothes, which made her feel even more puzzled. Suddenly, the scene shifted. She found herself on the high overpass she had just seen. She looked out and saw a vast sea, surrounded by dense fog. It seemed that everything else in the world had been submerged. Today, many Japanese speculate that Tatsuki may have died in the dream at this point. She had mentioned seeing Hades, the god who rules the afterlife, suggesting the visions from here on may depict the afterlife. The tall overpass she walked onto could be the path to the world beyond. After climbing the bridge and seeing the vast body of water, many believe this could be the river Sanzu, the Japanese mythological equivalent of the river Styx. In folklore, souls of the dead gather at this river before passing into the spirit world. There's also a traditional figure, a spirit woman, who steals clothes from the dead, and hangs them on tree branches to weigh the sins of the deceased. The heavier the clothes, the more sinful the soul. Could the clothing store Tatsuki entered earlier have actually been a place displaying clothes of the dead? After reaching the top of the bridge, Tatsuki saw 3 cruise ships. But moments later, she realized there weren't just 3, there were many ships, each carrying people from different countries: Korea, the US, India, France. Some netizens interpreted these ships as ferries for the dead, meant to carry the victims of a global-scale disaster. Could it be that the 2025 accident will be a worldwide catastrophe? But is that even possible? Taiwanese geologist Kwok Kai-wan once stated publicly that from a tectonic perspective, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines cannot physically merge into one landmass. However, strangely enough, this does align with certain theories of future supercontinents. Though scientists estimate that forming such a supercontinent would take at least 300 more years. Yet, John Thomas, a geologist once invited by the CIA to work with them, offered a very different theory. In 1963, he wrote a book called The Adam and Eve Story, which was later classified by the CIA. In the book, he claimed that if a geomagnetic pole reversal occurred, it could cause not only mountain-sized tsunamis, but also violent shifts in Earth's crust and volcanic eruptions. While most modern experts believe magnetic pole shifts take hundreds of thousands of years, Thomas insisted, based on his own research, that such an event could complete in just one day, which many see as exaggerated. Still, he predicted that the next reversal could occur within 7 to 200 years. Given the book's 1963 release, that would place the event somewhere between 1970 and 2163. Beyond geomagnetic shifts, let's not forget about Kimura's miracle apple. Mr. Kimura once claimed he boarded an alien spacecraft, and inside, he saw a stone tablet marked with the year 2025. The tablet predicted that in 2025, a green star would approach Earth, triggering a series of disasters: heavy rain, fierce winds, food shortages, earthquakes. Kimura shared this story with his close friend Josen Takano, a Japanese monk and renowned UFO researcher. Takano later stated in a YouTube interview, hosted by Naokiman, that the green star Kimura saw matched the Hopi prophecy about the end of the world. The Hopi people believe we are currently living in the fourth world. The previous three were each destroyed, the first by fire, the second by ice, the third by flood. We are now in the final phase of the fourth world. Once 9 signs appear, the fourth world will end. As of now, 8 out of the 9 omens have already come true. There is a place in the sky, far above the earth, where something will fall and cause a massive collision. When it appears, it will be a blue star. Once it falls, the whole world will descend into chaos. The white people will wage war against nations in other lands. Thick smoke and great fires will rise, leading to death and disease. And all these apocalyptic scenes will happen after the blue star falls. Some viewers may have already noticed that the blue star mentioned by the HY tribe is different from the green star that Mr. Kimura talked about. However, in the interview, Josen Takano explained that many Japanese people often confuse blue and green in language and perception. In that same interview, Takano also shared that he had once welcomed a Hopi elder to Japan, who confirmed to him that a bright star would approach Earth in 2025. It seems that many Hopi elders were already aware of this. And it's not just the Hopi. In 2022, an elder of the Navajo tribe also issued a warning, stating that 2025 would be a turning point from which humanity could no longer recover. In addition to these prophecies, we also discovered a Japanese man named Kunio Yaju, who has recently been attracting significant attention from netizens. This is because he has contributed many additional insights regarding the mysterious date, the 5th of July, 2025. But first, let's briefly introduce his background. Kunio Yaju is a Japanese physicist, an expert in quantum mechanics, mathematical physics, and neuroscience. Although he had a strong academic foundation, he later shifted his focus to studying aliens, religion, and quantum consciousness. On 7/2/2025, a YouTube channel called Tolanvlog uploaded a video interview with Kunio. In the video, he made a shocking statement. According to a confidential source, at 4 a.m. on May 7, 2025, a fragment of an asteroid will fall to Earth. But in reality, he said, it's not an asteroid, but a satellite. What followed in his statements veered deeply into conspiracy theory territory, and it's important to note that these claims are unverified. Kunio stated that the satellite's fall was not an accident. He alleged that President Biden had made a secret agreement with the Chinese government regarding Taiwan, and that after Donald Trump returned to power, the deal was apparently revoked. He further claimed the chosen timing of the incident, 4 a.m. on 5/7 Taiwan time, corresponds to afternoon on July 4 in the US, which is Independence Day, a moment when America's alertness is most relaxed. Again, these statements came from Kunio's unnamed informant, and there is no way to confirm their authenticity. However, the video has already garnered nearly 3 million views. This has led to widespread concern among viewers about what might happen on that mysterious date. Coincidentally, Tatsuki's writings also suggested that the 2025 disaster might be man-made, not natural. That's why she refers to 2025 as a great accident, rather than a natural disaster. She wasn't sure if it would be an underwater volcano or a bomb, but the human element is what deeply troubled her. Could this accident really be caused by people? In an interview, Tatsuki shared that many people believed she had incredible foresight, predicting the 3/11 disaster, but in truth, after she drew the manga cover, she forgot all about it. It wasn't until a casual conversation with a friend that she began to reflect. Should she have shared her prophetic dreams with the public? Tatsuki said, "Many people believe that major disasters won't happen in their lifetime. But in reality, these accidents are not impossible, the only question is when they happen." She always wondered, if she had taken her dreams more seriously and warned others, could the number of casualties during the 3/11 earthquake have been reduced? That's one of the reasons she decided to republish her book, to encourage people to always be prepared. In her writing, she also shared a hopeful message. She once dreamed that after July 2025, the world would enter a brighter future. This lines up with the ancient Hopi prophecy, which says, although the fall of the blue-green star represents the end of the old world, it also marks the beginning of the fifth world, a new order filled with hope and renewal. Personally, I believe that the purpose of prophecies is not to make us live in fear, but to remind us, what's unknown is not frightening, but being unprepared for it is. We can't know for certain what will happen in the future, but we can decide how we face it. History has shown us that the survival of humanity has never depended solely on whether a prophecy is accurate, but on whether we are willing to act. Maybe something really will happen on 5/7/2025, or maybe nothing will. But if today's message has made you reflect on the future, and if you feel inspired to make a change and take action, then whether the prophecy comes true or not no longer matters. So, how should we prepare and take action? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below this video, and that concludes our sharing for today. If you found this video valuable, please share it with a friend so they can learn too. Thank you so much for watching, see you again next time.